Hey folks, this is Mr. MegaManFan. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. You know all the things to do. And speaking of subscribing, this package comes from a subscriber to the channel. He specifically asked that I refer to him simply as a subscriber to the channel for privacy reasons, which I respect, because if you are not doing this as a full-time business, you might not want the kind of attention a YouTube video could bring. So for that reason, I will respect their wishes and leave their name out of it, but we should have a very interesting product here to look at. He included a controller to use with it. This is the Gamepad Pro Wireless by Snakebite, which he said was a decent comparable to 8-bit DOE substitute for these kind of setups. And I suppose if you can find a good 8-bit DOE style controller for a lower than 8-bit DOE price, that's a good way to go. There's a bunch of stuff inside this box as well. Looks like we've got a charging cord right here, some instructions, and that's always helpful to have all the stuff in the box you need to do what you need to do. And in simple bubble wrapping, which tells you it's not 8-bit DOE because it's not in any kind of custom tray, here is our Snakebite with what feels like a decent D-pad and decent pair of analog sticks, A, B, X, Y, start, select, power, L2, R2, L1, R1, all the usual suspects are here. So we'll have to get this charging while I do the setup on the device itself. So let's continue with the unboxing here. But there's the power supply. And last but not least, we're gonna have the actual device itself, MegaPi 3B Plus. And looks like a carrying pouch for it, and it comes in a Sega Genesis case. Now, he did ask me if I had a preference, but in asking, he also told me the Genesis case was the best one, so I took his recommendation on that. So it has power and reset buttons. I believe he said that was one of the problems, is some of the others didn't have those buttons. And as you can see, we've got an audio jack, HDMI, HDMI out, and DC in. Boy, how did I get tripped over HDMI of all words? Okay, let's see here. Get this thing out and take a closer look at it. I suppose in a way this is advertising the MegaPi case. If somebody is looking for a retro Pi case, MegaPi might be a way to go. I'll judge for myself once I get it out of this wrapping, but so far I think it's going to be good just by looking at it through the packing. That is very pretty. That reminds me of a Sega Genesis Mini. That's pretty close, with the volume acting as the eject, which is something you couldn't do with a Mega Genesis Mini. You couldn't actually load anything in there, although I think it came with a dummy cart strictly for the amusement value, but that's cool. Power, reset. This is a very nice custom retro Pi case, and I want to thank my subscriber for putting it together for me and sending it to me to try at absolutely no charge, I should say. You know, he didn't charge me anything. He's just somebody who likes my content and likes seeing me cover these kind of things, and I'm grateful that I have somebody who feels that way. So, unnamed sir, thank you. And without further ado, I'm going to plug this thing in and fire it up, and let's see what it can do. So I've got a little retro workstation over here where I test new games when I get them in, and also plug in my MacBook to do HDMI out to the television when I'm doing non-fun stuff, business stuff. So it's a perfect place to plug in a Batocera RetroPie setup and give it a try, since I've got all the HDMI and all the outlets and all the power cords all available right here. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I unplugged the MacBook, I'm plugging the Batocera into it, and plugging in the power, and we should be good to go. In just a moment here, I'll flip the power. You can see the red LED come on, and if I pan up the camera, you'll also see that it's displaying on the screen. Right now it's a blank screen, but there's our Batocera logo. It officially works. Now I'm going to put the camera in the tripod and we'll get a better idea of what this thing can do. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm only testing it with games that I already own, and you've previously seen me show off Xenocrisis for Neo Geo CD on this channel, so I thought that would be a good place to start. I used a keyboard plugged into the RetroPie to update the Batocera settings and map my own Bluetooth controller to it. Even though it was set for snakebite by default, I wasn't really into the snakebite, no offense to my unnamed subscriber, but I decided I liked a PS4 controller better for using RetroPie. And the Neo Geo CD module is working just as well as my actual Neo Geo CD console, so I have no complaints on that front. And in fact, doing it this way is very comparable to using the Bluetooth receiver, the Neo BT that I bought from Stone Age Gamer, and a PS4 controller on the Neo Geo CD. It feels exactly the same. It might even be running exactly the same. If there's any kind of performance difference, I really can't tell. This works just as well, and it plays just as well. And Xenocrisis is an incredibly fun game. And you know what? When I bought it from Bitmap Bureau, it even came with 5 included downloads. You could download up to 5 copies of the game for use in your personal setup, whether it was RetroPie or burning a disk image to use in a Neo Geo CD if you didn't want to wait for the physical disc to come in the mail or whatever. So technically, this is not only my own copy, it's also one of my own downloads. It's really super official. If you've been sitting on the fence about getting Xenocrisis, maybe that's a good reason to do it, because you can play it in a setup like this. This is another personal favorite of mine, the Ninja for Sega Master System. I go so far back with this game that my friend Sir Crunch and I used to rent it from an electronics store in central Iowa growing up. Yeah, we had to rent it, play it for a few days, and return it, but he had his own Sega Master System, and I've probably told the story about how he actually loaned it to me for a summer when he bought a Super Nintendo, and that formed a lifelong love of Sega Master System that's never gone away. But this particular game was definitely high on the list to rent, so it was one of the first ones I bought when I actually had a chance to own a Sega Master System. And again, this feels just like playing it on the real thing, which is sort of the advantage of using a RetroPie setup. It's got the power you'd need to play 8 or 16-bit games almost flawlessly, 32-bit games for the most part, and I think with this particular RetroPie module, when you get into N64, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, that's where it's going to be a little iffy. You're not necessarily going to get 100% compatibility or 100% performance, but if you're playing stuff from, I'd say, the early 80s up to the 2000s, most things are going to work. Some things might not. But if you're sticking to 8 and 16-bit, you're almost guaranteed that it's going to work. So there is a lot of fun to be had in a RetroPie setup when you can just load up games that you own and play them on demand like this. Of course, a RetroPie setup also gives you advantages over using real hardware, like save states and fast forwarding and rewinding and hotkeys to go back to the menu. That's one of the things that takes a little getting used to with a setup like this. You have to have a hotkey programmed to whatever controller you're using. On a PlayStation 4 controller, the natural choice was to use the PS button that you use to power on the console, or when you hold the PS button and the share button, that's how you get into Bluetooth pairing mode. So it's already natural to use that button combined with other things. And when you press your hotkey, then you have to do it with a combo of another button, like the square button for the save, or the hotkey and the X button to load a state, or the hotkey and the triangle, I think, was to reset to back to the menu. It's not super intuitive to me yet, but you get used to it over time. I'm sure it will become muscle memory the more that I do it. But here you can see me fiddling around with creating save states, loading save states, just using the hotkey and trying to get familiar with using it with the PlayStation square, circle, triangle, and figure out which buttons do what. Personally, my favorite hotkey combo is simply the one to quit out of a game and go back to the menu, because if you're playing something and you're just not feeling it, you can quickly dump out and go to another game that you've loaded onto the SD card. And yes, do remember that you should be making personal backups of games you own and loading those. Like if you have the analog Super NT, you can dump games to an SD card and play those on anything you want. Overall, this is a really powerful, fun to play setup in a very slick case, and I want to thank that unnamed subscriber for giving me a chance to try it. This is a lot of fun, and I'm going to get a lot of mileage out of it going forward. Mr. MegaManFan, signing out.